Mr. Chairman, we are live.
Oh, wonderful. Yep. My microphone is blue. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is Wednesday, December the 15th, and this is the monthly meeting of the Historic Resources Preservation Board. We are live.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Secretary, may we have the roll call?
Certainly. Judith Fox is absent. Bernard Guthrie,
I'm here.
William Feldkamp,
Here.
Ricardo Martin,
Here.
Steve Pickett,
Here.
and Bob Dorenzo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Wonderful. All right, if you would all join me in Pledge of Allegiance. Stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Sidda, are there any additions, deletions, or reorderings? Right, and can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
There were no minutes.
The minutes, but then we're not going to approve any. And now I guess we get into swearing in of staff and applicants.
If you plan to give testimony this evening, please stand and raise your right hand.
If you're on digitally, please turn on your, unmute your mic and turn on your video, please. Juan, that's you.
There he is.
Is Janet your client, Juan?
Okay, one.
So we'll just catch up.
Okay. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have proof of publication for the two projects tonight. And so let's go into quickly board disclosures. Anyone have any disclosures regarding these two
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
My name is Elizabeth Flanagan. I'm with the City Attorney's Office. I've met some of you before, but not all. Just wanted to clarify and kind of go over, highlight the disclosure procedure because these two projects are here for quasi-judicial hearings. And so as you're going through thinking about your disclosures, I want you to think about if you have or reasonably believe you have demonstrated a bias or prejudice for or against any party in the hearings, a direct or indirect monetary interest in the outcome of the hearing, including any campaign contributions, which do not impact you guys because you're not campaigning, a prejudgment of the issues prior to hearing on the facts of the record, or any ex parte communications or personal investigations. I know at least one of these has come before you previously, so you wouldn't have to disclose what you have talked about here in one of these previous meetings related to a project, but anything outside of that you would need to disclose. And if you answer yes, then I have a follow-up question for you.
Start with Mr. Pickett.
I have two disclosures. One, I received a voicemail from Herman Robinson expressing concern with the project with the 4 individual lots, the 25-foot lots. And I also saw a posting on a Lake Worth Local Facebook page. I didn't read through the whole thing, but I saw that it was starting to become a public forum about that particular issue as well. So I stopped reading it because I wanted to stay unbiased about the whole thing. So
since you've answered yes, my follow-up question to you is based on your response, are you still able to serve as an impartial hearing officer and make your decision based upon the facts of the record?
yes.
I have two as well. One, I got a message also from the commissioner, Herman Robinson. It was just general. And then I also called the sustainability department with Erin and I asked her quite a number of questions.
Okay.
So, and she responded.
And are you still able to serve as an impartial hearing officer to make your decision based upon the facts of the record presented tonight?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
It helps if they do, because it is one portion of the presentation.
We collectively as a board have discussed both of these projects, as a matter of fact, and given our opinions at that time. So we have a little bit of that to deal with.
Anything outside of that is what I'm.
Okay, and then outside of that, you asked if I'd done any further investigation, because I have a couple issues with it, so yes, I have done a little further investigation. I have spoken to several people to get their ideas, some elected officials, Herman Robinson, the one, just to get their ideas on more of a concept, not this particular project, but the concept itself. And to your next question, it doesn't, no, I think I can make a decision based on the facts.
Okay, and I'm sorry, which, is it particular to either one of these projects or for both?
Let's see, mainly for the, mainly for the 1307.
Okay.
I feel totally left out. I have not received a phone call from anyone. I have not read anything. I have not spoken to anyone since our last meeting. So I visited the site and that's about it.
Can we back up a second? And somebody alluded to a post on Facebook that they saw. I basically put a question, sort of a question out there. I want to see whether gauge the feel of that. And again, it doesn't have, eventually it has something to do with the 307, but it was an overall idea.
Okay. But it,
And I didn't,
you can still be impartial.
yeah, and I didn't put my opinion on there. I just basically asked what everybody else thought.
I also received a call from Commissioner Robinson. Sorry, Bill. And it does not influence me whatsoever.
Thank you all.
Okay, well, thank you. Those were the board disclosures, and let's go right into new business. Item A. Ms. Sitter, did you want to present it? And before you start, we've been told that our rustling of papers here from the dais is very disconcerting, like that. So please try and keep your papers quiet.
So this is a consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new approximately 4,000 square foot multifamily structure with 4 units on lots 12 and 13 of block 40 units. 26 North Main Street. On the subject property is located in the historic district. You can see the general property location here. Again, it's an MF30 district. Existing land use is vacant, and the future land use destination is high density residential. Here's a bird's eye view of the property. You can see that it is indeed a vacant property.
Indeed.
So you saw this particular proposal in November as a conceptual review. The applicant is here, Mr. Juan Cotton, and here's the proposed site plan. You can see it's 4 units where the 4th unit, there's parking underneath. They're kind of like a town style configuration. You may recall that there was a discussion of different elevation options. Staff is stating that you really can't do option B because of conflict with the zoning district, because it essentially creates a wall forward of the front setback with that option. It's really between option A and option C. So I just pulled the staff recommendation a little bit forward in the presentation because really you saw this in November as conceptual review.
Right.
You really needed to pick option A or option C in your packet because of option B is not consistent with the front setback requirements. Staff is also recommending the board discuss the amount of fenestration on the front facade that you select and recommends additional fenestration on that facade. The proposed project is generally consistent with the city's land development regulations and historic preservation design guidelines. So just to explain process, this is also going for a concurrent minor site plan amendment. So you all have site plan approval for items that are greater than 7,500 square feet. Otherwise, those options go and are administratively approved by staff for compliance with the zoning requirements. So the subject here really is all new construction within the historic district has to come before you for a certificate of appropriateness. So kind of the scope of your approval on this is related to the COA application itself. Similar to what a single family home would be. Again, that's also something that would be like a site plan approval, a building permit or something like that. So, your normal design-based comments on the architecture and the consistency of the architecture in place within the district. Here's the street view rendering of option A. Here's the B, the no-go one. Here's the C. And then in your analysis, one of the things that you determine is kind of like, I'll just read it. New construction can be designed utilizing the architectural language of one of the 10 defined primary styles. So when you look at your design guidelines book online, and you go through it, there are 10 styles that are defined within the city. But that does not mean that we exclude all other styles. Those are just the styles that are most common in our city. So, new construction can be designed in one of the 10 styles or an alternate yet compatible style. It is important that the new construction not hybridize the styles or borrow from pieces from one or another, and this approach creates confusion or dilutes the intrinsic value of the historic structures and the styles. The best approach is to choose one style of architecture and to design a structure that utilizes the common characteristics, proportions, and materials of that style. So that's, I know we have a lot of new board members, so I just want to pull that out and just kind of highlight that's part of your COA review, is you're saying, is it appropriate in the district? And also, is it true to the style? So again, our recommendation is that you pick A or B, and that you, or A or C, sorry, A or C, not B, and that you discuss the fenestration on the front. That is our recommendation. There are conditions of approval. That is in a modern architectural style. The conditions were in your packet. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Does the applicant or his architect have a presentation?
They're online.
We did have a few pictures that we took of the neighborhood that we wanted to present in regards to the fenestrations and what we've noticed in the area, at least. If I could have access to share the screen, I could.
Public comment on this.
Okay.
Just curious.
Okay. So we just were looking around just for references to some of what we're designing. This is one of them on Dixie Highway. This is on North L Street. It's very, it has the vertical elements similar to our design, but also it has 2 windows, and we're providing a better front yard in comparison to in this situation, but we're just pointing out the fenestrations here. This is the lot next door, as many of you know. So here, these are painted on, and then we have one window, I think. This is on K Street as well. In this situation, we have 4 windows, and also the entrance is on the side. This is on K Street as well. Two fenestrations here. Also a side entry, similar stairs in this situation, but for us, this is in the back. And that's pretty much it. Those are the additional images we wanted to show as examples of what's in the neighborhood.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
All right. Anyone from the public wanting to speak?
I have in total 4 comments. Right, and I do. I have some last minute ones that came in. The first is from Gail Silverblatt at 414 North Ocean Breeze. She's asking if the applicant has met the replacement tree requirement or the in lieu fee stated in the landscape ordinance. And can the 3 large mango trees with diameters of 1.5 and 2.5 feet, and especially the large oak tree with a diameter of 2.5 be moved to Bryant Park to add greatly needed shade near the band shell? I have another from the residents of Unit 110 Coconut Walk, 219 North L Street. They are overlooking the building site. The names, I'm not sure about, is it Cooler Tenick and Deborah Schulmier? Sorry. They have concerns. They would like you to save the mango trees and have concerns about construction noise and access to alleyway during construction. Another from Diane Scoglin and Michael Starr, residents at 318 North L Street. Their concerns are the construction is very creative for placing 4 separate units within one structure on a small lot. The exterior design elements, however, are incongruent with the neighborhood. This structure appears as it would be something in an amusement park, and the very light pastel colors make it look old, worn, and needing to be painted. Rendering C is the best design to break up the very linear and sterile look. Second concern, the green spaces that remain on the north, south, and west sides are a great addition to add to such a block type building. It looks like at least one of the mature trees is being left, possibly 2, which helps maintain the city's tree canopy. This is very much appreciated. This is a very much appreciated attempt to make the green spaces more enjoyable, and it definitely adds a very pleasing look to the surrounding community. The parking situation is limited and confusing. There are only 4 numbered off-street parking spaces in the back labeled number 3 through number 6. Are the developers promoting that 6 spaces exist? Spot number 4 appears to have a very tenuous exit entry. We're concerned that there is not enough off-street parking for the number of residents that could occupy this building. 7 bedrooms in total in the building. So again, parking will flow out onto the street to achieve anything more than 4 parked cars. And the last one is from Elizabeth Bartlett, resident of 211 North L Street. And the first comment is that the backup material on the website was incomplete, as it only showed staff reports and no attachments. And as we, so there was no context to interpret Hrpb staff reports or intent of the applicants. Number 2, they show the alley with the proposed 4-unit complex, which is also shared by 2 other apartment complexes and 8 townhouses. Since the alley entrance at 3rd Street between K and L have properties up to the edges of the lots, I'm concerned about the potential for accidents entering and leaving the alley because there is no room for either driver to pull aside to yield to oncoming drivers. Alley parking for this complex will also increase congestion significantly in the area. The proposed parking layout for the proposed complex includes 1 handicap spot. However, all of the units have stairs leading up to the bedrooms and living quarters, but do not have elevators or other handicap accessible accommodations. Without handicap residents in this complex, adding a handicap only spot in the alley parking limits off-street parking for the residents and increases demand on limited on-street parking near the building. This extra area should be used for the wall-mounted bike rack, so bicycles are not stored out in the elements and in public view where they are likely to be stolen. Private gardens are proposed for the north-facing side of the building, given that residents will not have much storage for lawn care equipment. And there are no gates. It is not clear whether these private gardens count toward pervious or impervious surface for the proposal. Ideally, to best benefit the residents, the layout should be flipped so the gardens are on the south side in the building, or on the south side of the building where they will at least have a chance of receiving enough light during the day to grow some plants. This will also allow residents easier access to the trash area on the northwest side of the property. The doors to the units appear to be opening inward. Doesn't code require them to be open outward for hurricane protection? The walkway to the main entrances appears to be fairly narrow between the doors and fence and may inhibit residents from moving furniture and belongings in and out of the units. Based on the general renderings, the private stairwells for each unit will have full windows from top to bottom to bring in natural light. However, these stairwells will be especially visible at night if indoor lights are on and could make female residents or visitors feel vulnerable when staying in the unit alone at night. Stairwells should be more private while still allowing for natural light. It's unfortunate that the current layout requires removal of all the shade trees from the property. We are the Mango Grove neighborhood for a reason, and the mangoes from that property are especially delicious. And that's all we have.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant have a rebuttal to that or any more comments? Mr.
Yes,
Conceptual.
hello. Yes, a lot of the comments seem to be about movement, some of the things about the building itself for the facades and some of the things about the gardens. That's been checked pretty well with the staff in terms of pervious, impervious. We've done a lot. One of the units was lost, actually, half of it to parking underneath. One of the gentlemen who mentioned that it seems like a strange parking space. That's a new type of parking that we're doing here in Lake Worth Beach, to put one car in front of another to be able to give more access to people on the street parking. So the project has 6 parking spots, 2 on the street and 4 in the back, with a handicap police in the back. So the developer was very happy to give away the other part of a unit on the downside to be able to provide more parking. As it goes for crowding the alleyway, well, I mean, it's a bit strange because you've got two other projects that are a lot like it, that have been there, that are existing, that have the same type of occupancy. And I think it should be afforded to another one to exist right alongside them in a pretty nice way, I thought, that was set up especially for the parking. In terms of the front, we looked around. All of the side-loaded buildings that are there have between 2, most of them have 4 windows, and 2 of them have 6 windows. We'd be willing to look at the front facade with some of the, that's the exceptions that the staff was talking about, to look at it. I think the front is very nice as a garden, and provided shade trees in the front and all trees along the sideway. So we believe we've worked hard with the staff to try to meet quite a lot of these comments. And honestly, I think the building does provide a lot for the community and for the lot itself.
Right, are there any other comments from staff or neighbors? If not, let's go into executive session and have comments from board members. Start on my left.
I think the C is probably one of the better of the 2 choices. I still think that it's a little blank as far as just those 2 little small windows on the second story. I realize that might be limited by the layout of the unit itself, but I still think that it looks like a lot like a blank wall. The other question I had was, when we were discussing it last time, didn't we, for the, I think it was we thought that the north facade was one of the nicer facades, and we're hoping that maybe that would be reflected on the south facade, and it kind of looks like they went the opposite direction.
Yeah, I caught that too.
So I don't know. I'm not in love with it. I think that maybe you're making some progress, but I don't love it.
Okay. Mr. Martin.
The look, for me, I'm fine with the modern look of the building. The side that's showing the picture, I presume the side that's showing the picture with the fence is the south side, right? With the sliding glass, is it sliding glass doors I see?
Well, the fence is on the north side.
On the north side, so these sliding
Where the
glass,
gardens are.
And these sliding glass or large windows that I see are facing the north side, correct?
Can we get these elevations on the big screen?
They're talking about the windows. Am I looking at the right? We're going to be looking at elevation. I like elevation C as well. So we could look at the north side of elevation C.
So this fence here, this is the garden.
Right.
This fence here, this is the south.
The wall, the south side. So the north side has, from what it appears, sliding glass door. Am I correct? Sliding glass doors or large windows? I see it right through the fence.
Yeah, Juan, can you?
Yes, it does have sliding glass doors on
Which
the,
is,
for
okay,
the garden. Yes, for the
So-
garden.
okay, so, and then there's 2 windows on the second floor for each of the units. So that seems to me.
Yes, there is. And that's required by the fire department as well to be able to escape from a bedroom.
So it seems to me like they're adequate and looks very nice. It would be nice to have additional landscaping there to soften and at least shade those open areas, small patios that are for each of the units. But it seems like they're not going to be very dark and they have ample light. The other commentary is that I'm not quite clear how there's 4 units, so there's 8 trash cans and how it'll affect the look of the building. And where are those trash cans? Is it this faded green area that appears on the
The green
elevation?
area on the left would be the area where they are.
Okay, so they will be on the front, on the
Yes, on the
north side. On the north
front.
side,
Yes.
lined up behind it'll be, I guess, hidden according to the presentation.
Yes.
So I think, I even liked the first time around when it was presented, some of the aspects of it in terms of that screen that it had. But this one, C, I would prefer C as the better one. And I'm fine with this building.
Mr. Guthrie.
Let's see, could you go back and forth and just actually for my education, you said that the B was not going to be considered because it did what? And can you tell me what
It
that is?
extends the wall forward. So really, I mean, it's a fine line here. So we do allow balconies to extend over the front building setback line in some situations. And really these kind of little things, they can almost be like similar to like an awning over the window. They're more like a side awning. But once we really start building an entire wall all the way around and extending that forward into the setback, that gets a little, it gets a little weird.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to, for my own education, I wanted to find out what because you had said the wall, and I didn't remember seeing that. And could you go to A?
I'm sorry.
And then back to C again. Actually, C is more in keeping with the type of architecture that I believe becoming quite known for, and I do like that. So I agree with the other members. There was something having to do with the screening on the south side as well. Something, I guess some sort of a screen where these
Staircase.
Yeah, let me pull up the architectural elevations for you in the plan set. You can do the full exterior renderings. That was just what we had in the presentation, just for the discussion. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, I'm sorry. So this is the rear elevation with the parking. This is the internal stairwell to that 4th unit for externals. And then these were the screen areas.
for the other stairwells.
Now, is that like a diamond metal, like,
Juan, can you talk, he explained it.
Yes. This would be in a bronzed or copper metal that would be there. And part of it is for privacy and to also let diffuse light into the structure to keep it airy and open, but also to give the privacy to the neighbors that basically you wouldn't really see in. It would be a something to guide, especially we have the southern exposure here, and this is where the sun would be most prevalent.
okay.
I guess I'm on. Let me start with the good things. I think your plan works very well. I appreciate the sliding doors. I appreciate that 3 of the units have patios. Your parking, to answer one of the public comments, the parking does comply with code, and the 2 parking spaces on the street are counted as parking. Glad to see you're taking advantage of the drainage and water retention issues. That is the lowest lot in the area. However, all of these good things that I talked about are things that are not really within our purview. Our purview is the style and the compatibility of this building with its neighbors, and I don't see it. There is no identifiable style. The architect has shown us some peacock buildings on Dixie Highway where one would have a peacock building to draw the eye. I would like to note that those items that he presented or she presented all have a cap on them. They all have a soffit. They have a horizontal section at the roof. It was quite obvious as I looked at it. The fact that something works on Dixie Highway does not mean it works in an historic district. This style seems to be typical of this architect's work, but this is not a typical location. This is an historic district, and the whole concept is to have openings that are roughly similar to the neighbors and having massing that is similar and so on. And I just do not see it. Among other things, you have too many types of windows. You have non-operable, you have casement, you have double hung, so-called double hung, at different heights. Let me ask the architect, are these floor slabs, concrete slabs, or is this going to be a wood truss situation?
They would end up being concrete slabs, for what we see.
They would be, say that again?
Concrete.
Concrete,
Yes,
okay. So then you'll have a good 10-foot ceiling height. In
yes, 10-foot ceilings, absolutely.
both the first floor and the second floor.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, to go back to the question about the style that you preferred, one of the issues that you had the last time was that the building needed to look more complete all the way around. And what we were having some issues with the other scheme on the north side was that there were quite a lot of pieces that were actually, it was set up that it was all, pieces were almost hanging off. And in terms of longevity of the building and the style of it having an upper part and a lower part, it cut the building in half. And quite honestly, there isn't a lot of the buildings around in that historic neighborhood that have that. It seems that a lot of the facades were wide open with a pitched roof, I may add, but that's why we came up and united the building in this way, because people also, they were made reference. Could we go back to the back facade, please? The rear facade?
I'm sorry, Juan, I can hear you.
Yeah, the rear, could we go back to the
Sure.
rear facade? Yeah. Yeah, we're with the rear facade, that was one of the comments last time also that said that, you know, everybody seemed to have liked it. And we were working toward unifying the building and the design. And we picked some of the elements. We picked this one especially because it made the building simpler in general. I mean, we'd be willing to work with some of the colors and things. A lot of the windows themselves, I believe they're all of the same type and the same, well, the same type. I mean, they work differently, obviously, because you have to have sliders and some other windows that are in there. But the color and the actual glass would be the same. And to unify it with some of these things, the shading to give it privacy was another. So that's why we unified the building that way. Also, the units that were on the north side, to hang some of these other pieces that were on that two-part scheme would have been impossible coming into the setback on the back and also on the front and the south side as well. The garden side allowed that.
Pieces. You're talking about the screening on the windows.
Yes, some of the screening and some of the horizontal members that you had said that you preferred instead of, yeah.
And someone else here has said the same thing, that we preferred that north facade because it had a little bit of play between the verticals and the horizontals as to all of the other buildings in the area. The front facade particularly is relentlessly vertical. And I just don't see that relentless verticality as being consistent with the district. There's no scale to it. If we go back to the front facade, those windows are, the bathroom windows are extremely out of scale with other buildings around. You could make them larger. Those bathrooms are quite large. They're almost 9 feet long, as I remember. Those windows could certainly be larger. I also have a hard time with these fins that you've put on there. Presumably you're talking about them as being shading devices. Well, you know, this is what? This is the west facade. So the west facade sun, you would want to have shading devices on top of those windows, not at the side.
It's for the garden, sir. It's for the garden that they follow back into the garden. So that would shade the garden areas. So, and the shading, I see what you're saying, but a lot of the shading, as you can see it here, most of it is coming from the south, and you can see the vertical pieces that are coming out. Those do shade the windows for most of the day.
Well, and that's in the heart of winter, at which time you really want to have some sunshine. Now, in the summertime, you know, you're going to have sunlight actually coming in on the north side, on the garden side. So these very stylistic fins appear to be just that, stylistic with no purpose. I think the bathroom windows are unacceptably small. And that entire facade really just does not show on this one or alternate C, does not show scale the way we want to show scale. This building is a peacock. It's the only word I can come up with. It's a vertical peacock, and that is not what that neighborhood is all about. I think the front facade needs a lot more work and a lot more toning down. This one is A, but if you could put C on, C as, yeah, likewise, C has, you know, if the floor to ceiling height is 10 feet, well, that rib, that horizontal rib is at 8 foot. So it's not even part of the slab if your slab is up at 10 and a half. So I think, as I said at the beginning, I think the plan works well. I think the parking works. I think that the units are fine. This front facade needs to be calmed down, cooled off, and become a member of that neighborhood, of that street. That's my opinion.
Excuse me, is there a picture of the front facade from the previous presentation?
As far as these, the facades are.
The west,
This front, the front from the previous presentation. from last time?
Yeah,
So, these are the same facades.
James,
Oh, they're the same?
Yeah.
I don't recall them being like that.
I wanted to see the north side from November's.
Yeah, I have the north side. If I could just do a logistics item, we have a participant, her name is Janet, she's got her hand raised. I didn't know if she was a public comment person or if she was a member of your team one, Janet Lavanara.
We don't, no, she's not a member of our team.
All right, I'm gonna promote her and just see, I'll find out.
yeah, if we missed a public comment, we need to go back and reopen that.
Okay, keep on,
3 minutes.
I'm messaging her. I think Bob was next, Mr. Chairman, if you want to keep going with your panel.
Okay,
Well, I kind of agree with your comments. I was hoping to see the north elevation. The metal screening too, I was thinking, I forgot what you call them, but you know, the blocks they use in carports for the raised blocks, I've seen them vertical. Which maybe something like that to break up that. Because to me, I see rust. I don't care what kind of metal you use, I see rust. Just an idea. But I agree with the chairman as far as what we're seeing from the street and blending with the neighborhood.
Pull it up from the last presentation or whatever. I mean, it kind of has some elements to it that are showing on the west facade to a certain extent with the
Right.
boxes that are breaking up the facade, but I agree with, breaking up the verticality of it. This building with not only is it almost a flat facade other than the screen coming out of the side of it, but it's accentuated by the striping with the color blocking. So I'm not against color blocking or anything like that, but in this particular application, it's severe.
yeah. We have to realize that we do not have any input on colors.
No, I know. I'm just saying that it kind of accentuates already obvious
Yeah.
situation.
Well, what's the opinion of the board? Denial? Hold off for another month for
Well, if we,
return?
if we could get the windows in the front, I believe I sounded like the windows need to be possibly elongated in the front to carry
Enlarged,
on with that.
elongated.
And I agree with Mr. Feldkamp as far as raising the horizontal to match your slab, which I think will.
Can the architect address that horizontal member that goes across midway in the building? It doesn't look like it's 10 feet.
I think incidentally that we are in executive session now and that we are not
Yes.
supposed to
I'm
be
gonna
talking.
promote Janet just see
Okay,
if
great.
she's got her hand raised and just she's not chatting with me just to see if we're able to see if she's able to comment on this item.
There it is. Oh, there it is. No, I did. I love you. See the old ones. The old ones.
Janet, are you a public comment on this item?
Hello? Yes.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and speak for 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi, I'm a neighbor directly across the street from this project at 223 North K Street. I did put in a public comment, but it didn't get read. My concern was parking, as currently, parking is really tight in the neighborhood. But I have to say, I am appreciative of their plans. It looks like they are considering that. Today, most places, for a rental, are supported by 2 vehicles. As I put in my comment, the house right next door to the north, which will be directly across the street, has no off-street parking with 4 vehicles, and they all park in front of this building, in front of what they, plan to build. So I'm a historic cottage across the street. It's a 100-year-old home. It's a blue house. The builders will probably have recognized it. But this is just dramatically different from anything in the neighborhood. That's my only concern. It looks very nice, but I just say it will stand out like a sore thumb. The house directly to the north is not a great example, and it was shown in the overview that they gave. It's a terrible with fake facade presentation. I don't know how that got approved, but everything else in the neighborhood is historic. The homes on the west side are all historic. So I would just ask for some consideration to that and try to have it fit in a little bit better with the neighborhood, because this is dramatically much more modern than anything that exists currently.
Thank you very much. That was public comment, a little out of turn, but we've had our discussion up here.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add to the comment that you made, just so you know, like the logistics of your decision, is that if you choose to deny, the applicant will need to come back and reapply. And if you want them to consider redesign and come back to you later, then I would recommend that you continue. It's up to you either way, but just so you know.
Yeah, can we just defer to the next meeting?
Yeah, and William also brought up to my chance, and if it's denied, it technically can't come back. It can't come back until it was a substantially different for a year. So if you want them to evolve it, then continuing it would probably.
So do we just make a motion for continuation?
Yes,
Could I,
if you wanted to.
before we hear that motion, can I ask a couple questions? There's some concerns, some major concerns, and the major concerns with the entire design. But this is the design that this architect is for, I guess. And we kind of looked at it before. If we made some modifications to it, we could approve it with those modifications, with those conditions tonight, right?
Yeah, unless it's substantially different, and then, they would probably come back to them before that. If there's like you're requiring a redesign of the side of the facade, that's probably something you want to see back.
A window, elongating windows.
If you're good with just an elongated window, then we can handle that.
I mean, that was if there was one negative to the front of the building, which is the small one, as you mentioned. However, when you were speaking of the facades that they showed as examples from around the area, you'd mentioned that they have soffits across, or they have caps. Well, on the, if I'm not mistaken, on number 3, they do have a cap. Is that correct?
I think that's a move in the right direction.
Okay, I mean, and so if you could take, it sounds like we all prefer C over A, and that gives the caps, if they elongated those windows to make it more symmetrical. I still wanted to ask the architect question on because then you wrote a good point. If that's a 10-foot ceiling down below, it doesn't appear that the rendering is correct. And I don't think that would make a big difference if you move that up to in half to the building, because we still have the same architectural design. But if we could do that and move it forward.
I mean, if the scoring and the verticality is an issue, it is a stucco finish, and we could make it much more of a whitewash type of finish where it is. I guess there's a lot of buildings in the area that are like that, with a very smooth white stucco and just smaller accents in different places.
We're speaking mainly of the horizontal feature just above the 2, if you can see the screen. The horizontal,
which is roughly at 8 feet, and whereas the
like
slab itself is up at 10.5.
It doesn't look like it's 10 feet high.
It's decorative, like the square.
We are past the presentation, we are in executive session. So
Mr. Chairman, if I may, William just kind of whispered in my ear, just something for you in consideration is there is like on the bottom floor, maybe making that like a solid white and allowing the verticality to exist in the top box to differentiate the top and the bottom. It's just a
yeah, that's
food for thought.
that's food for thought and something that the architect might want to pursue. At this point, can I have some kind of a motion?
I just say continue. I mean, we could come up with ideas for another 20 minutes. I just say we continue it to the next meeting and let the architect take in consideration all your comments, all our comments.
Is that a motion? Does that qualify as a motion?
I make a motion to extend case number Hrpb 2100100250 to our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, the timing is for redesign and resubmittal of the Christmas holiday a little tight for the second week in January. Would you want to, would you want to be certain?
To a future, how about to a future
Has to
meeting?
be certain to avoid advertising, so it could
Okay,
be to the February meeting?
To the February meeting 2022.
And I think you. Project number?
Oh, probably.
23.
Hrpb 21014000023, corrected.
And that
226 North K,
that hearing would be February 9th.
to our February 9th meeting.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Steve. Any more discussion or shall we move to a vote?
Discussion.
Yes.
Are we giving the architect enough information to be able to come back?
I think
In other words,
we
we're
have.
continuing, are we giving him enough direction from this board on what it is you want to see? I mean, we've heard a lot of comments. Ranging from it's totally out of character with the neighborhood to change a few things. What is the direction of the board to come back?
Well, if you want to take us one at a time or you want a general collective, I just think we're dealing with, the main issue is the one wall facing the street. You have windows, openings that don't coincide with the rest of your neighborhood. The pink and yellow and vertical stripe seems to throw everyone off. You know, Mr. Waters threw out putting solid on the bottom, raising the line to your 10-foot ceiling height, solid on the bottom, maybe tweaking those stripes on the second floor. That's what I've heard.
Yeah. All right.
I have a comment. It's just so much you could do with a two-story building. I'm following your line of thought. We have, commentary that, either it doesn't match the neighborhood or it does, and we can go for modern architecture or
Sure.
sort of contemporary architecture. I think that based on the commentary of everyone here, the caps were a positive suggestion. There was the criticism regarding the verticality. Maybe the verticality is brought upon by the color scheme, and also breaking it up a little bit and bringing up that other I'm not an architect, so that line on the
Horizontal.
to bring it up a couple of feet. The sides to me appear, especially the sliding glass door, as gardens and nice. The back looks nice with an elevated parking on the bottom. The other side is limited because it's everybody's ingress and egress to their apartments, but they're putting some landscape, cabbage palms and stuff. So there's a certain verticality to it that you can't avoid. But the front, we can also agree to putting in larger windows to match over the two doors that are on the first floor. Just move the line over a couple of feet to divide it, paint it all white, and put the cap all around it. And I think with the landscaping, the hiding of the trash, we could move toward approving such a condition it.
You all were also talking, there seemed to be some consensus about making those second story windows larger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and line them up you know, there's a certain, even though it's contemporary and those two little windows, I agree with William, they're just throws everything off. It looks like it's an afterthought. It doesn't look like but I'm not an architect. Maybe some will look at it as beautiful.
I think we have given them sufficient direction.
Well, I believe when
We could have.
where we're talking about if we were to condition the approval on those windows elongating and moving the horizontal feature up, could we, and then have that have staff approve it once that goes through?
And requiring the cap.
That's the only thing we're looking at.
Well, if that's the only thing we're looking at, it might be better for it to come back in January then, only because William was bringing up that there are some alignment. If they look at the windows need to align with the floor plan, and there would be some other things to kind of look at.
Let's ask the applicant, do you prefer January or February?
We prefer the January meeting because we believe that we could get something turned around, and we'd like to get something going to move the project along. The other thing too is, I did want to ask one question. On the back facade, can we just have one?
We're not discussing the project.
Okay.
We are in the middle of.
The January, then the answer is the January meeting would be much better.
So, Mr. Dorinzo, are you okay with changing your motion to January?
Yes, sir.
All right, and the second is okay with January. All in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the next project, one of the applicants brought to my attention that they had a presentation they were not able to get to staff earlier. Unfortunately, we can't accept presentations on USB drive anymore for cybersecurity. So if you could do a 5-minute recess to see if we could figure out a way to accommodate them.
Sounds good. Yeah, good luck. Let's hope we get the latest.
Thank you.
Okay, 5-minute recess.
Is the elevator
Okay, we are,
The time is 7:10 and we are back from.
okay. 7:10 and we are back from our recess and we are going on to our second project of the evening, 307 North L Street.
Staff has a presentation. So good evening, for the record, Erin Sita, Community Sustainability. This is the consideration for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of 4 new approximately 1,489 square foot single family structures on lots 27, 28, 29, and lot 30. The current address is 307 North L Street. The subject property is in the multifamily residential district of MF20 and is in the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District. You can see here's the general location on the zoning map. Again, the zoning is MF20, and the future land use designation is medium density residential. The existing land use is vacant. Here are the current lot conditions. Here are some neighboring properties. And here's the proposed revised site plan. As you recall, this item came before you in September. The recommendation was for the item to be redesigned and come back before you. Then it came again as a conceptual review for the revisions in November. Here is the proposed site plan as submitted. And it features two front facades, all with alternating design on the 4 lots. Again, you can see here are the site plan options. One is type A and type B. One with a Dutch gable, and one with a more traditional frame vernacular style architecture. Here's the street view rendering. Here's the gable roof. This includes the east elevation, the west elevation, and of course the north and south elevations. The Dutch gable. The interior plans feature a front office room with a great room, 2 bedrooms, and both with ensuite bathrooms and a powder room. Here is the streetscape elevation again, and you can just kind of see the scale of the buildings in context of the streetscape. Again, this is predominantly in wood frame vernacular style. It's a modern take on that. The design guidelines do wood frame vernacular is one of our 10 defined design guidelines. You can see here, this is I believe this is page 43 in your design guidelines, talking about the material, the exterior finishes, and the window proportions. Again, portion stoops, simple columns that are boxed in. And then, so this is an example of how we would define just generally our wood frame vernacular style city. So again, new construction can be designed in one of the 10 defined primary styles or an alternate compatible style. As stated, the architects say that this is a modern take on wood frame vernacular. And you can see here on the left are the 2 proposed front elevations, and on the right is kind of full a vernacular style home. The recommendation of the board is to discuss if the 2 building designs on alternating lots and the placement on the lots are consistent with the previous direction by the Hrpb. As you may recall, these are 4 platted lots of record. On platted lots of record within the city, single-family homes are permitted. It is permitted by right use. However, because these lots are located within a historic district, you all have, they are new construction. Your review, or your the purpose of your review or the scope of your review is directed towards the architectural consistency with this historic district. And the proposed single family site plans are generally consistent with the LDRs, but each single family lot will be, their site plan will be reviewed at building permit for compliance with the city's LDRs, including the landscape code. As with the last project and this project, all large trees that are required to be mitigated. The city has a tree mitigation ordinance. So if those trees are removed as part of construction, they have to plant additional trees above the minimum requirements of the lot to mitigate for those trees that were removed as part of construction. Oh, the parking as single family, 25-foot lot requires one off-street. So, and then, so that is also site plan. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any other questions, and I believe the applicant is here. And,
Good evening.
Good evening. Do I use this microphone?
Yes, please identify yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I don't know if this microphone's on. My name is Spencer Siegel. I'm an attorney, 1600 South Dixie Highway in Boca Raton, Florida. I was recently taken on by the petitioner to help them with this case. I did have a fantastic looking presentation that I'm unfortunately unable to give you this evening because of technical difficulties. However, I'm going to try to get to the salient points very quickly. The North L Street project, as you've seen it before you, is, as you can see, an excellent, or you will see that it's an excellent attempt or success by the architect in terms of coming to the vernacular style that is popular in the city. It has both the gables and the materials and the design that is congruent with the rest of the neighborhood as it was done way back in the 30s. Obviously, we're on the third wave of development here in Lake Worth, one being the 30s and the 50s, and now we're in the newest wave. We can't bring back the craftsman, we can't bring back the craftsman style, and we can't order a house from Sears. But what we can do is use the artistry to get as close as we can. And I believe that the petitioner has done that in spades. And I say that by looking in comparison, I asked staff if they could please just pull up page 43 again of the guidelines. I know that you all have been on this board for some time and probably seen this 1,000 times. However, I think it's important just to take note that 43, right?
43. Do you want 47?
47, I think. As you can see, the architect has taken the exact style points from this drawing and from these guidelines, and has, while he's done something different with the gables and done with the front porch cover, I think he has made a very attractive addition to any neighborhood that one could make. The only criticism that I've seen in the comments that I was able to read before I got here today was that it was a repetition. There's two models and they're repeated twice. The architect and I were able to discuss that there could be different finishes. And I believe that if you were able to have that discussion with him, and you will, he could probably come up with some different finishes that would allow you to approve that this evening. This is obviously the highest and best use for this property. It is in a multi-family district. They're making single-family homes, making two-story homes, which I saw as another prior comment, is not really is reasonable in an area like the one we're talking about here, where we're talking about a community of hopefully for more tourism. We're bringing in people who are coming down from the north, perhaps to retire. A two-story house is not as attractive as a one-story house, and they're coming to this neighborhood for that one story and that feel of the cottage, which I think, like I said, we've captured pretty well. I'm available for questions. That is the conclusion of my presentation. I'd like to call the architect next.
Thank you. And here comes the architect.
Hey, I know
Good evening, members of the board. Giorgio Antoniazzi here on behalf of Sundream Development. I'm the architect proposing the 4 cottages that we're seeing again here tonight. I'm always happy to be here because I think I'm in a room that is filled with people that want to make Lake Worth better and reinforce and preserve its current character. And when we came here in August, perhaps, our project did not really meet those 2 guidelines completely. However, we took your comments and staff comments and reinvented the project, redesigned, took your comments to heart, put the project in front of staff, and came here again in November for further comments. And we kept improving the project. And today we're here, a much more well-developed project, a beautiful project, 2 developed homes that meet your comments. They meet the staff requirements. They meet planning and zoning requirements. And frankly, and we don't even maximize the density on this lot. We could build a lot more. Architecturally, they are sound. We have chosen a cohesive style, and we're doing it well. And urbanistically, we're creating a rhythm of homes in form and design that are absolutely Lake Worth. From the street, from the public realm, which is what matters to you tonight, what people will see from the street, from the sidewalk, it is unequivocally Lake Worth, what we're showing here. So I think you stand here tonight on a line, I think straddling a line between conscientiousness and delirium. I think, is this board helping the neighborhood? I would say up to this point, yes. I think we've made the project better with each comment from staff, with comment from the neighborhood, with your comments. But I think it's time to move on. I think it's time to make this project a reality. We have a good track record. Our purpose is to make a beautiful neighborhood, and this project will only add to that street and beautify that street. Absolutely. I'm open for comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Now we're talking about questions for the applicant or the architect.
I have some questions.
Okay.
With regards to the trash that we had lightly mentioned, where do the trash containers go?
We're going to provide screening, as we discussed before, likely in the front yard, create a screening. We're going to work with staff to have the trash can screened from the street.
Are there comments from the public?
Yes, I do have comments.
May I say one more thing? Because I happen to have read those comments. And I know that landscape tends to be something that gets brought up. There's a beautiful oak tree on that property that paints us to get rid of, really does. Then there are some mature mango trees. In the eyes of the code, you know, we're going to meet every mitigation requirement and planting requirement possible. We would love to keep that oak tree. It hurts us to get rid of it. That tree is very valuable. But we can't make this project happen with that tree there. Having said that, the developer is gracious enough to invite anybody to come take it. If somebody wants to, some of these neighbors that would like to keep this tree, help us find a place for it and transport it there. Trust me, we want to keep trees. We love trees. They add value to the project. However, we have to be realistic, and we are going to meet to every point the landscape requirements in this project.
Okay. Thank you. Do you want to read that?
Sure. So the first comment is from Diane Skywin and Michael Starr at 318 North L Street. And their concerns are nothing is being done in the design to mitigate the removal of the large mature trees that provide shade and canopy to the area. The replacement vegetation noted does nothing to alleviate the problems that are being caused by the building of these 4 structures. Building 3 structures with more room for trees in between would be a big improvement for the environment and the aesthetics as well. This is a huge environmental concern, not just here on Lake Worth Beach, but is being addressed by West Palm Beach with planting of deciduous trees interspersed with palm trees in order to regain tree canopy. Number 2, there have been some changes to the exterior design, but again, why can't there be a bit more creativity? In actuality, there are only 2 designs that are being used and duplicated. Having different exteriors will promote a more residential city design rather than suburban development. Number 3, there still remains a parking problem. Each structure has only one 9 by 22 foot brick space in the back. With 2 bedrooms per structure, there could be at a minimum 8 vehicles that need parking, which will cause an influx to the street parking situation. Let's build a better Lake Worth Beach, not just buildings. Anyone can build just buildings. The next one comes from Rich Raphael at 832 North J Street. And his comments are, I reside at 832 North J, and he's president of the Mango Groves Neighborhood Association. The Mango Groves neighborhood is the largest component of the Northeast Lucerne Historical District, and the dwellings in our neighborhood are of a wide variety of designs. We want to maintain the historic integrity of the neighborhood. At the initial design application, there was concern that the 4 proposed dwellings were too homogeneous in appearance. In trying to ascertain what progress has been made to the design of the dwellings, I have been frustrated in that no updated diagrams have been made available for public viewing and evaluation beyond those already denied by Hrpb. As a result, I request that the current application be tabled and another date for public comment be made. The current lot contains mature mango trees that, if the application is approved, would allow the trees to be cut down and be replaced with unspecified shade trees. The loss of the mature mango trees further dilutes our claim to being a historic neighborhood. As a result, I request the developer be required to plant replacement mango trees on the same species as was removed for construction. The next one comes from Elizabeth Bartlett at 211 North L Street. And she again reiterates that the backup materials on the website did not include plans. Item number 2, based on the revised plans provided by the developer, the housing still has a look of Hurricane Katrina era FEMA trailers and do not fit the look or feel of the rest of the community as depicted in the book Cottages of Lake Worth. Since the developer is clearly looking to maximize return on investment on these properties, the community may be better served by splitting the property into 2 50-foot lots. Each lot would contain a well-designed 3-2 house on a separate 1-story handicap accessible mother-in-law suite that can either be used to house relatives, extended family, or rented out for additional income. Since the property is currently zoned as low-density multifamily residential, MF20. Lake Worth is a beautiful, livable community. We should strive to maintain its unique identity. And the last comment is from Larry Reese and Mary McDermott at 315 North L. And their concerns are the neighborhood context. The structures aren't substantially different from the structures previously submitted. They feel remarkably out of place as compared to the character of Lake Worth community and especially the street. It seems as though the developers are trying to bring a modern minimalist Miami to this community without recognizing the character that already exists here. It may be authentic to Miami, but certainly doesn't feel authentic to Lake Worth. The barracks shotgun design does not preserve the character of the community. Development density. The patterning of this development seems to differ greatly from the immediate neighborhood. The approximately 80-foot long shotgun style home is much different than the typical cottage style homes in the surrounding area. Lake Worth is very much a carriage house community with shorter homes and detached rear yard structures. This does nothing to respect that. Proposed home roof slopes are far too steep as compared to the scale of all other existing 1-story homes. Having a steeper slope also adds to the feeling of higher density. Site development. What about the amount of impervious surfaces that seem to be present? It seems excessive, especially in a community subject to excessive rainfall events. How could this have a significant impact to stormwater management? No gutters, no downspouts. How are they handling rainwater? Left little to no room for replacement trees, necessitated by removing the very large trees that are on site. This lack of landscaping and trees also seems very concerning. Where will trash containers be kept on site and from site? Filling every available inch of the lot will surely be unattractive, and anyone with children thinking of buying will likely be deterred by the lack of outdoor space. There appears to be only 1 parking space per unit, while the homes offer potential occupancy for 6 people. This doesn't seem sufficient, as street parking is already tight in Lake Worth. And lastly, architectural character. The 4 proposed homes are nearly exactly the same shape, style, color, scale. This is also out of character for Lake Worth community. Current neighborhoods offer diversity in color, patterning, and shape. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions for Mr. Antoniazzi? I have a couple of them. First off, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you've done it. There's a couple of things I don't understand. One, I'm wondering whether are your doors and windows all at a 6'8" or are they at an 8-foot level? You were doing 8 foot. I couldn't make that out. Help me understand detail 2 on A300, if we can get that. Yes, also detail 3. On the ones with the small porches in the front, is that side enclosed on the small porch or is it open with column? Yeah, exactly there. I don't understand that.
What's the square with the vertical lines on it?
He's talking about here.
That.
Yeah,
A low wall with an opening.
okay, so where the star is open. Which,
That's open and that's a decorative wall.
That's where we have siding on that first volume that
Mhm.
projects out. We have
okay,
siding shown there.
okay, in your plan, it looks as though that was a solid wall coming out to the face. But that's okay,
This is here, this is the siding here.
yeah. And then this is a column and not a wall.
That is a column.
There's a column.
Yeah, with, I think that bottom elevation actually shows it best.
Mhm.
Side elevation.
Raise it up a little bit.
There you go. That's an opening,
Mhm.
and like a low wall there, only on the
This is all
side.
one,
Yeah,
one plane, so that line may not actually be there.
that's.
So where would the front door be? Is it in the lower?
Okay, you,
So,
thank you.
To the left, to the left.
Is it in your revision or is the rendering in your revision?
The
And then
images of the front.
And I had a question about this. You-
Have,
These doors and windows are now at 8 feet.
yes, there.
Okay, good. I don't quite understand the architrave and the. It's,
Rendering.
Keys.
One is the rear, but actually there you can see it from the side.
yeah, it is open. Okay.
So it's open there.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Other questions?
well, not necessarily for the architect, I mean, I think you've done a nice job there for very narrow, long buildings, you know, you've done what you can do on that and tried to get somewhere close to what we're looking for in the neighborhood. My issue is, and has been from the very beginning, is just how much building. Something didn't seem right with the massing. The question was brought to me, why, if these are 4 separate lots, 4 separate properties, why are we not looking at these as 4 separate buildings in 4 separate items on our agenda? That question was asked.
I think we-
Staff can tell me that.
I think we are. I think we have to make 4 motions tonight. One motion for each, yes.
But it's not 4 items.
No, 4 motions, yeah.
The massing of this is what I believe the entire board had a problem with before. When you look the bird's eye view of this thing, the buildings with very little space in between them. We spoke of trying to do different things such as staggering the fronts of the buildings, possibly making one or more of them 2 stories so that you could get a little bit more parking possibly in the rear. And I knew something was an issue with that because these are 25-foot lots are non-conforming lots. And the reason that why do we call them non-conforming? Okay, so, and then when they made these things non-conforming lots, they put a word in the ordinance that said that you can build on a non-conforming lot if it is a single lot. And And they use the word single purposely in there because I was here then. The reason that they went and they made 50-foot lots the requirement. So when I go back to, if you go into the pictures that were part of the presentation.
So Chip, as we discussed, these are single lots.
Could you go to the picture of the that we're given of the lot? No, that one. There's a sign on the lot, that right there. And I was looking at the sign, and the sign says it gives all of the possibilities for that particular development, your development possibilities. And it doesn't list 4 single-family homes on it. It does list two single-family homes. It's the very first thing on the top on the right-hand side. I don't think you probably can't bring it up. And if that were the case, we would have no problem, with it at all. It would have ample parking and things like that. And then I ran across something else where we had a similar situation when NSP came through and wanting to build Habitat for Humanity homes on 25-foot lots and non-conforming lots. So, and it was brought to my attention that all of those Habitat for Humanity homes were required to have 2 off-street parking spaces. So, and that was a condition for them to build on a non-conforming lot at that time. The P&Z board had control of that. So I'm wondering, my issue has been from the beginning, are we setting precedents here? So anybody with a vacant 50-foot lot that was platted to 225s, are we going to be able to take a 50-foot, which is a conforming lot, and break it into 2 non-conforming lots and allow them to build on?
So I think that we're getting into semantics and what we talked about before. There are parcels which are ownership and are related to the property appraiser and tax collector. Okay, and then there are platted lots of record. So these are 4 single lots, and they were legally platted and legally subdivided. What the property appraiser does is to collect taxes. It has nothing.
I'm not
Right, I know,
suggesting that.
But you're saying the word, this is a single lot.
No, I'm saying it's a non-conforming lot.
It's 4 non-conforming lots.
Okay, and why are they non-conforming? Because they're
It
not,
doesn't matter why they're non-conforming.
sure it does.
So there are 4 single non-conforming lots that is, the state of presented to you can be developed with a building permit for single family homes, each one of them.
Mhm.
The only reason they're here because they're in a historic district, so they have to come to you to make sure that they're staying in conformity with the historic guidelines for this neighborhood. That's the reason you're here. That it's on 4 homes on 4 separate lots is not important. That's not a question for you to talk about. That's not something that you are voting on. It cannot be considered in your vote.
Okay, but what we can consider is the massing of the.
Yes.
And massing, if we were to take each individual lot and say the massing on that lot does not reflect the neighborhood, because when they bring up the argument that there's lots of 25-foot lots in Lake Worth, yes, there are, but most of them, if you were to take them, they're going to either have very small structures on them, very short, 750 square foot homes. Some of them have a detached dwelling in the back. And things like that. So the massing is one thing that we are to consider.
That is.
And if you look at this project in total, by taking all 4 of these non-conforming lots and building on them, the massing of it kind of comes into play. And the massing of it, but by the massing of it, one of the reasons that it is so massive is that there's no parking. There's one lot, there's one space horizontal, parallel on the alley only. And so the massing of something is in the purview of the board.
Okay, again, as the attorney pointed out, these are items that are not within our purview.
The massing is.
Massing is, but the lot sizes and so on are not within our purview. Nor is the parking. Parking, the required parking is the required parking.
May I?
Mhm.
Okay. When this board in the historic area, in the historic districts, acts as the planning and zoning board. Am I correct about that?
You-
I got two yeses and a no.
Well, you are a local planning agency. So when you have your zoning hat on, which you don't have on right now,
We don't.
you don't.
No.
You have your historic hat on. So you do have zoning authority and you do have obviously guidance authority on things like when you review ordinances and you wear those hats. You have two hats you wear. Right now, you're wearing your hat as a historic preservation. So before you, the scope or the purview, what is before you is your certificate of appropriateness for the architecture, not whether 25-foot lots are okay or not.
So you're looking at setback, height, mass, bulk, site organization of the property, and the conditions that are listed in the site and the staff report that are conditions for new construction in a historic district.
Well, let me try this then. If we are the zoning, if we are the planning board for that area, and we had a proposal for new construction on non-conforming lots, why did that not come in front? How is that approved by staff? If we have new construction proposed for non-conforming lots.
Permitted by right.
Round it up.
I'm gonna get learned here.
Probably not.
Okay.
Anyway, all lots of record in the city have a right to be developed upon. If it meets the requirements of the LDRs, and our LDRs have provisions to allow construction on 25-foot lot. It specifically has stipulations about what the required parking would be, the setbacks, the floor area ratio, lot coverage, both building and permeable surface, floor area ratio, and height. If that's all met, it can be approved by staff. It doesn't go to planning zoning board for them to either, except in historic district and new construction, which is both Elizabeth and Aaron has explained. That's what's before you. Interpreting whether or not the land development regulations for the district in terms of setbacks and height and lot area ratio and stuff are appropriate or not is not in question. It's already been established in law. It has evolved a little bit since it was put in place in 2013, but that is what is utilized across the city. This would not in the historic district. It would never be seen by board.
Just like you're seeing west of Dixie where they're putting
So
more.
how do you define mass?
Mass is the overall
Which we have.
metric experience of a structure on a lot.
The overall?
The overall mass is a volumetric determination. You have bulk and you have mass. Massing elements, and if you just said that you've got a 4 cubes of different sizes, the massing of that building would be a 4 massing configuration.
And that we have
The
authority.
overall bulk of it would be all 4 of them together.
So we have authority over deciding on mass and bulk
Yes, whether those
to
are
see if it
consistent
matches the rest of the historical district.
Yes.
And I think that's where what it's been brought up is the mass and bulk as single family homes does not match typical cottage and look.
Square footage. Well,
No, I'm not saying square foot because they could put the square foot in any configuration.
okay.
It's the question, what we have, to be clear, what we can make a decision on is the mass and bulk. And if it's comparable to the rest of the historical district for single family homes.
If it's complementary and in harmony with the district, that's what your evaluating basis for the bulk.
Well, there's certain parts of the presentation that are complementary, and I'm glad that you've worked with us, which was originally, it was all the same small 25-foot lot, and the look was too modern, I guess, based on all the cottages that we have. So they did come and work with us and change the facade of the project, basically. And that's fine. They, to me, and maybe they could better it a little bit, but they're fine. It's the bulk and the mass for single-family homes in 25-foot lots. And correct me if I'm wrong. Let's suppose I'm looking at this as you want to get more units into that property. Let's suppose you were interested and you wanted to build townhouses. The typical townhouse in that area is what, 2-story or 3-story? How many stories? 2 stories in that area.
2 and 3.
2 and 3, and they have 2-car garage on the bottom. So they were able to get that approved, and maybe the height was typical to the apartment buildings in the area. So, and they were able to divide it into kind of a look of individual homes that were attached. But the parking, which we have no authority over making a decision upon, that goes to planning and zoning if they want to address that. But the issue here is the mass and the bulk has affected other things that also have to do with planning and zoning. We can't separate a lot of this, but it doesn't look, which was my comment in the original presentation, doesn't look the rest, single family homes do not look like the rest of the cottages that are there. Now, I don't know if you can, it's not, as far as I know, you cannot replicate the exact cottages that were built back in the 30s and 40s because many were taken to the property line, correct?
So,
The additional ADU or whatever you want to call it, the garages, but you can't do that anymore.
There are some examples of 25-foot lots with accessory structures that have that kind of carriage house style. That is probably a more common configuration on 50-foot lots in the city. I will state that a very common configuration on a 25-foot lot is what we call, and that's in the design guidelines, it's like a shotgun style, which is along because of the nature of the lot itself.
The nature of the lot, right?
Yeah. So I can pull up the aerial for you if you'd like to see kind of the massing and context.
Yes.
Guys, I mean,
Yes.
I don't understand why we keep looking at this building from the sky. You know, you're not gonna be looking at this from a drone or from a high rise in downtown.
It looks good
Right.
from the front, they do.
Absolutely. And I feel like we're grasping at straws here. It's not, pardon me, and I say this respectfully. I don't think it's in your jurisdiction to tell us what we should develop, what we could develop. It's about making the project and what we want to do better. And we've done that. It's going to look beautiful from the street. And maybe the massing, as you're putting it, perhaps it's off-putting to you. And
well,
you don't.
No, it's not that it's off-putting. You can
But
put the square foot, whatever you would want to. I'm
Yeah,
not
and I could
criticizing the square footage or
And I
anything.
could build townhouses that are
Yeah.
1 story and cover as much lot. You know, because, I mean, I could stick them all together. What we want is a 1-story building because that is what our market wants. That is who we're selling to.
And I have to agree with the architect that we are in an urban environment.
Yeah.
We have a lot of single-story houses that do
And code allows
take
them.
that much lot size. I'm thinking of a very nice house
Code is-
and Fairfax came up with.
Aaron,
You know, it's 2 parcels, 2 pieces,
Right.
front and back,
Let's see.
but in terms of lot
No, I
coverage.
understand, please.
They could have
Wanna
gone
go street
larger.
view?
Yeah, no, street view. just
No, the
straight
upper,
down.
the view above.
And also, after that, put the street elevation on.
I'm sorry, the view above, you want to look at this?
Instead of pictometry, can you go straight down?
Oh, yeah.
Look at that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if you couldn't do that, if you went to page G001
So those are the
with the
town-
aerial picture that's on their sheet,
Where? Sorry.
can you pull up G001 on their sheet?
Yes.
And just, I don't know if you can, we'll see it, but
We've asked our own question. Look at all of these.
right.
There's got a
Well,
house in the back, this is a house in the back, cottage, all of the entire site. That takes good part of this.
That's indicative of.
You know, this is the neighborhood you're in.
Find one that goes from front to back, that's one of the.
Yeah,
on a 25-foot
if
lot.
Aaron could pull up that sheet on the aerial,
G002.
001.
What I don't understand is why that matters to this board.
Well, it should.
It's massive. So it is.
No, massing as you perceive the public realm, right?
Oh, one, the next
So
one.
as I'm walking down the street, what am I gonna see?
Can you just scroll a little bit so I can see that? Or, I guess you can't see, yeah, you can't see it as well. But just,
I can pull up the aerial if you want.
yeah, I just want to see, like here. See all these buildings? All of them. Those are all lined up. There's barely any space between regions.
Right.
That way it's the same way. Down here, it's like that. Over here, it's like that. Like, you don't see the to his point, we don't see the massing from the air and nobody's looking at it from the air.
Yeah.
We need to be looking at this on what context.
And I think it's bringing a long way.
I think this massing ship has sailed.
Yeah.
We are here, we have a good project.
What
We should be happy that the applicant has
Right in the
decided
sense
to
that-
do single-family houses rather than townhouses.
that it seems like there was a house there was 4 lots now.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
right, okay.
now, look, are there more questions for the applicant or the architect before we? Okay,
You know,
all right, if there are no more questions, then let's go into executive session. We've had our public comment and you're done. I'd like to go through here and give my comments at some point.
sure. Go ahead.
I'll start out with my disappointments. You moved away from your original architecture, which I thought had some good possibilities to it. You haven't given us a comment of, you're not answering this, is just,
I just want to hear.
you have not given any indication of color changes to the individual units. I'm a little unhappy that you went with this layout where the living section is in the middle as opposed to the rear. Now, all 3 of those comments are none of our business. We have no concern, we have no purview over those items. Then I'm going to go on to the good things. I like the fact that you only need one parking space per dwelling unit. Our codes now are going towards less parking requirements as we go with urban planning and new town issues. So the 1 space per DU is good urban design, good. I am happy that you have successfully individualized the 4 units. That's what we were asking for. You gave it a little back and forth. You are compatible visually with the neighborhood and the existing structures around there. Small thing, apparently you're using clear glazing rather than other. I applaud that. I applaud the fact that you've got your parking spaces are pavers on sand. Then I have some suggestions that if we get to the point of going through the conditions we might want to add. I have a hard time with the fences between the units. That's a 6-foot distance and putting a fence in between them. I would like to have those removed. I would like to see some jogs in the front fence so that you don't have a single 100-foot length of pickets. Maybe you can recess the gates. We do have an issue with trash that it has to be discussed at some point. Your front walkway is apparently 4.6 feet wide, which is fine, but you don't need that much. It's up to you. If you reduce that to 3.5 or so, that would give you the extra square footage you need to put some trash cans up there. I don't suppose you're exposing your rafter tails, that's fine. The horizontal railing at the front porches fights the vertical pickets. My preference would be that you remove the horizontal railings in the front. A little question for staff. Do we require that the ground floor level be 1 foot above the crown of the road or 6 inches above the crown of the road? Do you remember?
I think it's 6. they'll have to meet the elevation requirements, and they're not a foot zone, so it just would be whatever.
Yeah, it's at 6 inches now, and I thought it was 1 foot, but I don't know.
There is some discussion of possibly bringing forward the consideration to raise it to a foot, because we have a number of buildings that are only 6 inches above the crown of road. And due to our older stormwater system and this proliferation of 500-year storms, some of those buildings come very close to being slightly flooded.
Hmm.
So we have been contemplating bringing forward that the finished elevation must be the FEMA flood requirement plus a freeboard of a foot, or 12 inches above crown of road, whichever is greater.
Okay, so the architect might want to take that into consideration. You've already answered my questions on the gable roof, and there is one little thing, your pediment at that little entrance is a little off. I don't quite see that the architrave goes all the way through. You can figure that out with staff, or we can look at it sometime. And that's the total of my comments.
Oh, I agree with most of what you said. No, I mean, the reason we keep bringing up these trash cans is our code department cites you if your cans could be seen from the street. And I listed 2 houses this week that they both had code violations on garbage cans. It's just this thing in the city. You're not supposed to see them when you drive by or walk by the house. They have to be hidden.
So put some of those,
Screened.
some of those
Yeah.
pickets would need to be replaced by a block wall or something, 4 feet.
So staff's preference is obviously to put beyond the front building setback to the
Yeah.
side and screen it. When I did a little aerial spelunking this afternoon to go figure out like what people did on 25-foot lots with trash cans, a lot of people keep them in their rear yard and bring them to the front. That's what I saw in the aerial. And they have like a side pave or a side walkway area, and you can keep them in the back, and then they bring them out on trash day. Another option is to provide screening, have a walking path on one side, have a screening path on another, and then have the garbage then screen on one side with like a really, or sometimes another thing on the side to pull out the garbage bins. That's something that we can work out.
Okay.
Giorgio, I told him that he needs to work it out prior to permit with us. So we have that discussion.
And as far as a 100-foot of fence in the front could, you know, you put the hedge in front of the fence and the fence, you know, there has to be a way, maybe hedge one and.
So the fence can be shown as one continuous fence.
Right.
It really can't, it really is
Be.
gonna have to be, because it's gonna be 4 individual lots, so that it'll need to have posts kind of at the corner. And
Right.
and then, I mean, we have to post and connect it to the other post, but it's gonna be 4 individual single family
Okay.
homes. So so you know, you can put your neighbors, you know, neighbors connect fences up all the time, but they need to kind of have a post at the top.
Right.
So
Okay. Should we go through the conditions? Can you put them up?
Want to read them or just put them up there?
No. All right, the architect has looked through all of these, I assume. Do we still agree with all of these? Let's go back to let's take them individually. Number 1. 4 parcel, okay, this is. Yeah,
These are non-negotiable.
Chip talks about.
Right.
What are the conditions?
Hmm?
The conditions.
Yeah, those are conditions, okay. Number 2.
They're actually, they don't even have to be conditions, it just, this is gonna
It's
happen.
just, this is what's happening.
This is what's happening, it's, conditions are a way sometimes for us to inform the applicant of what's happening.
Okay, so do they belong in our conditions of approval or not?
Like for things that are obvious like this, sometimes you know, not,
Keeping everybody on the same page.
Mhm.
there's some things, process things we like to just,
You wanted to read them or?
Okay, number 3, proposed exterior doors compatible with the wood frame vernacular style, subject to staff approval. Okay, number 4, you may use clear, frosted, obscure with low E. That's our standard issue.
these are all standard.
And number 5 is standard, although I would like to talk about it afterward in our board issues.
You can change it now. It's just we propose it. If you don't like it, change it.
Well, it doesn't really matter to this one. You're not going to use the add-on windows with the flanges. There's a name for them.
No, that,
You know, that's what we're trying to avoid. So we'll change that in the future. Number 6, the windows shall be used clear glass. You already said that you're planning on using clear glass, which is wonderful. Number 7. I assume you're using white. I don't assume you're using anodized
no, that's probably for the modern.
or the earlier version. So stucco number 8, number 9, the improved surfaces shall be set back from the property lines. That's the standard.
Can I ask something about that?
Yes.
We've only got 3 foot in between, we've got 6 foot in between. So if you put like a sidewalk, it has to be a foot off of the property line. So instead of 3 foot, you have a 2 foot sidewalk.
Yeah, so what they can do is they could do stepping stones or a gravel path. There's a lot of options that they could do. It's an improved impervious surface. And that's a new code provision we did in the fall. So we just kind of like to give people a heads up. A lot of people go with like a stepping stone type of provision instead. This is because, you know, when you sheet flow off improved surface and your improved surfaces to the property line, you're giving your water to your neighbor. So.
I was also wondering if it was a possibility to have the fence configuration in the backyard so that there was a gate from there into like a common alley, a 6-foot alley in between the houses or something like that, as opposed to trying to bifurcate in between the houses to provide some sort of, it just would, I think, facilitate a lot of spacing and accessibility if you did something like that. I don't think it would necessarily be too hard to configure your fences that way.
It's a good point, and especially because the fencing that you're showing goes right to the property line, and I can just see those cars trying to back in and hitting those fences. They're not going to last. So you want to
See that, and there could be some landscaping to divide properties, but
put a bush in there so the car can hit a bush. Okay, where are we? Number 10, mechanical equipment. We've shown that in the rear yards. Fencing materials reviewed by staff, and so that will include this trash can issue in the front or not in the front, and the fencing. 12.
We'll just say the typo, and it was a typo on 11. That was for the modern. It could just say, I would maybe strike staff recommends horizontal fencing is for the vertical slat aluminum. That was for. Sorry, I apologize. I forgot. I missed that.
Okay.
I crossed it out.
We strike that out of number 11. Number 12, you're going to give a sample of the wood. Final site plan is subject to staff removal permitting, minimum of 1 shade for each 25-foot lot. Are there other conditions that board members prefer? I'd like to, I don't know whether we need to put it in to omit that horizontal railing at the front porch.
because I mean, we could, I mean, they have to.
What if you did a horizontal
Look at
fence?
it.
Okay.
Try something else.
Talk
We can
to
also
that
talk
with
about the
staff. Talk to staff about that. And you're going to omit the fences between the units.
The fencing really, so if they were to sell the lots as individual single family homes, then the new homeowner can come back and they're entitled to the fence. So, you know, if you want to give them guidance for how to set it up before they sell it, but then once they sell the lot, then.
Yeah, it's out of your hands.
Yes.
Well,
It's like painting it a color.
The trash issue. I mean, as much as we don't like it in the front yard, I think that create a solution to screen it. So that then becomes I would like to see, instead of like hard fencing, more landscaping in the properties, instead of like a hard fence.
Yeah.
That the board asked that that be included in our, because there was a lot of discussion on how hard those cans in the front door.
Okay, can we leave it to staff to,
That's part of the
or do
same
you
thing
want?
that staff would consider.
We have to screen it.
I think that's why they took that section of porch in the front too, to accommodate that, maybe we were thinking that.
Well, the whole front column is smaller there,
Right.
but-
Okay,
Put them in the front or prevailing breeze in Lake Worth from the southeast. So if you want to make everybody happy, put it on the southeast corner of
Southeast corner.
the,
right here you said.
or make the neighbor happy, put it on the south, on the northwest.
All right, any other comments or can we move to a motion? Can I get a motion here?
I could, who wants, want me to do it?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
I move to approve HRPB project number 2100100250 with staff recommended conditions as amended for the certificate of appropriateness for the construction of 4 new 1,489 square foot single family structures at 307 North L Street, based on the competent substantial evidence of this in the staff report and pursuant to Lake Worth Beach land development regulations.
A motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dorinzo, all in favor, aye.
No, discussion.
Okay, discussion, go for it.
I thought we needed 4 motions tonight.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
that's right.
Somebody told me that.
How do we do that?
Yes, we do need 4 motions. Where did I,
Yes, so
you're right. Where did I miss?
Do we have,
Page 2, a COA for the construction.
I mean, because it says each lot in the motion. Sorry, so it does say each lot in the motion, and so you can do one
right,
motion.
that's what I
Because
read.
it's for the.
There's 4
standards of
separate
business.
properties.
Yeah,
Yeah, they haven't been assigned their new parcel numbers, so how do you approve? You want to go A, B, C, D?
You can refer it by the lot number.
By law.
By lot? Okay,
So there's,
Next on page 2 is just after.
so if you're amending your motion. it would be
Okay.
Just to state for lots 27, 28, 29.
and 30.
Yeah, I agree with that amendment.
so amended and agreed
Second.
to by second. All right, that answer that. Any other discussion? In that case, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay.
Nay.
2 nays.
Motion carries 3-2.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it.
It's gonna be a great project.
I'm going to move out a little issue at that front, the architrave. I'll call you. Thank you. Already, we are finished with our.
Thank you.
As far as I can.
Yes. Okay, public comments, planning issues, and so on, department reports. What do we want to do first? Planning issues? Any planning issues?
We actually don't have any planning issues right now or any departmental reports, other than the fact that, our new city manager has started, I think it was 5th of December, so 6th of December, so she's slowly getting on board, and I know there's a lot of things that the commission has on its plate that they want to start. Many of them will be planning and zoning related issues and discussions, so we'll keep you apprised of what happens and where the workshops are going to be scheduled and upcoming on items. Only thing in department reports is we have hired a principal planner and in planning and zoning. So we are now back up to 3 staff members. So that's really good. He has about 16 years of experience in planning and zoning in the general region and has worked in Palm Beach County, in the zoning division, and also in local and smaller city local governments. So it's their experience. Scott Rodriguez says you have a zoning issue.
Wonderful.
Is he gonna be part of historic as well?
He is not, he is gonna be over planning and zoning, but he will probably overlap here. You might see him if it's a zoning ordinance or if it's a project substance to district. We're still working on our historic staff. We do have an intern scheduled, and we're still looking for, still hoping to keep on keeping on. We're looking for, it's like, a great historic planner, let them know about our open positions.
Okay. So was that a department report?
That was the
or-
whole thing.
That was-
That was the whole thing. Board member comments now. I know we had some board member comments. Martin?
No, the only commentary, which is continuously overlaps with planning and I'm all for all this urbanism and all that, but we're like in a transitional economy and a transitional urbanism mode, and we still have to take a look at the parking spaces. It's unfair, I think, for the people that live in the neighborhoods where you can drive by now on both sides, all the spaces are taken. And we're very much aware of the economy and the working class people and the high rents and high mortgages. And there's more people living in the units, and we can't ignore it. That is a problem in all the cities, and parking has to be a part of everything that we do. Because it's going to be major issues. It affects the fabric of the community. It affects issues. People move out, then they become rentals, and 2-3 families move into a house. And we need to address that.
I would like to, because of this one particular thing, obviously I'm a little overzealous maybe on the thing here, but I think the point is, when we start breaking up lots and making non-conforming lots, breaking up parcels and making it back to their non-conforming lot, and then I'm trying to figure out why it needed a special land use for somebody to build on a 25-foot lot for habitat, where it had to come in front of planning and zoning, and then they had to approve it with conditions of making sure that the parking was in the back and had 2 spots. But I mean, that would
Yes, answer that question, actually.
be great.
The original code that was in place when I got here in 2010 did not allow you to build on a 25-foot non-conforming lot unless you got a special exception or 25-foot variance. With their update of the LDRs in 2013, we recognize that there's a proliferation of 25-foot lots in the city, and so they should be able to be developed by right versus through a special exception. And so that's the difference. And also the parking requirement has been adjusted twice since I've been here. And what we have now is a bit of a compromise. There was a push to eliminate the requirement for parking on residential on the property altogether. And I'm like, oh no, we can't go that far. So there's a whole array of opinions on parking. I think that is part of the LDR discussion that will come up later. Since we have a new commission and new city manager, there are a variety of items in the LDRs and sustainable bonus and economic development that are topics that the commission would like to have a conversation to resolve what policy we will have moving forward. And I'm sure parking will be another one of them. Very soon, probably in the next 2 months, we will have a very large parking garage the city will own or theoretically lease the first 2 floors of it, but so there will be an additional 120 spaces downtown. The opinions on the parking garage vary greatly. So look forward to it. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but Treasury Coast Regional Planning Commission through Dana Little has been hired to do a downtown visioning process. He might be coming to give a presentation to the Regional Planning Zoning Board, or it will be a joint workshop, but it's really looking at what direction downtown should take in response to the overwhelmingly divergent opinions on what should happen with the L&M project. And so out of that, the contract is in place now, and we're going to go some initial interviews and data and analysis of where we are. But I do have encouraged that both this board, the planning and zoning board, you are citizens in the city, all of you in property in the city, and you serve as the planning agency, your opinion might be worth something in terms of a vision for downtown.
When is this anticipated?
It's going to be worked on for probably over the next 6 months.
Excellent, excellent.
I would like to get an idea from the board, but if we, is this something that we need to consider going back to when somebody wants to build on a non-conforming?
No, I think,
Wait a second. If somebody wants to build on a non-conforming lot, should there at least come some sort of oversight? Because you mentioned those ugly houses on East Street. or
East Street, F Street, all the new ones that went up,
Window in the beginning of
C
it.
Street.
Those are non-conforming lots. If they had to come in front of some board and say, no, let's put a couple windows in there.
I look at it this way, it is a legal platted lot.
Yeah, that's
If
fine.
it meets all the guidelines, setbacks and all of that, if it's in a historic district, it should come in front of us for, like we did this evening with the last case.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It didn't come before us because they're building on a non-conforming lot. They came before us for aesthetic reasons.
Correct.
Okay, and then, but what I'm saying is I believe that it should come in front of us.
Any house,
Or some board, planning and zoning or somebody.
any new structure in a historic district comes in front of us,
Well, okay.
period.
I believe that the non-conforming
I
portion
don't,
of it needs to be addressed by a board.
yeah, but I don't have an issue with non-conform. If it's a platted lot of record, which is part of our municipality's history,
Right?
they have the right to build on it within the city
And I agree
guidelines.
100% with you. And it says right in the ordinance, and it'll be under some conditions.
Sure, I have no problem with
So I'm saying
conditions.
that I think a board of neighbors should be involved in somehow when you're building on a non-conforming lot.
A board,
Well,
Any board, I don't care.
yes, a
Not
board.
us.
No, us,
I mean,
planning and zoning, whatever.
Somebody needs to look at that because we got some ugly houses going up over here on
That's why it's important.
a non-conforming lot.
well,
Jim,
Let us-
I don't want to, bring up your conversation, but we did have kind of a workshop item on this during one of your recent meetings. We discussed it at length. The board had a consensus vote that they did not want to pursue this. So I think if you feel strongly about it, speak with the commissioner and see if the commissioner wants to take it up.
But keep in mind too that design review based on aesthetics is not allowed in Florida, except when it's related to the historic district. Our common,
Right.
which is pre-existing, been there forever, like beginning of time. So items like what you're talking about, Mr. Guthrie, would lead us more toward a form-based code, which could be added to our LDRs, which would stipulate certain things like a certain percentage of all elevations must be placed. You couldn't, it gets to be a tough. So if you meet the requirements of the LDRs, depending on your, if you have small lots, medium lots, big lots in our code already that have different parameters. And the buildings you're talking about that are a little bit oversized, you cannot build those on 25-foot lot anymore.
Right, okay.
The amount of livable space to the floor area ratio and the height on 25-foot lots is probably less than 2/3 of what some of those houses are.
Like the two new ones that are, I don't even know if they're CO'd yet, on C Street, right before you get to Second, North C.
The little one-story ones,
Yeah,
they're about maxed out.
they're about, like I say, they're maxed out. But they go over there and they kind of,
The
You know what I'm
two-story ones that are
talking-
on.
See the church?
I think so.
And Tropical Ridge, you couldn't build anymore.
right, correct.
now let me butt in here, or with all due respect, but it sounds a little NIMBY-ish, what you're talking about. In the future, and certainly the new urbanism is more density in the downtown areas, more walkability, which means fewer cars. More people, eventually ADUs perhaps in the city, we don't know. More public transportation and fewer regulations on number of cars. Every year, except for last year, we have these incredible street painting festivals with 100,000 people coming to them. And somehow everybody finds a parking space. They may have to walk 10 blocks for,
Get busted from the college.
get busted from the college. I think the future is higher density. And yes, we don't like to see these barracks. None of us do, but it would have been nice if that had been broken up the way and Fairfax's was broken up or something. But higher density is coming.
But they could have done the higher density in this particular project many different ways. They didn't want to go up, they didn't want to go right. They could have put the same number of units or more on that same piece of property.
One of those modern things.
And I'm all for the density.
Yeah.
But
I have a book that I could loan you. It is called, I'm sure William knows it, The High Price of Free Parking. And it is astounding.
There's really two strong camps on parking, and there are large groups with very divergent opinions, and there's kind of us and sandwich, right? So there's people who think there should be no required parking, and they're thinking that there's another group that thinks that there should be more required parking. So really, we just take our policy direction from the city commission, and then what the ordinances are, what is law.
you ought to hear the people screaming right now about the parking situation just north of Publix on J Street, where
all the townhomes,
all the and apartment buildings, the townhomes first, and the apartment,
the townhome.
and there's no parking.
Yeah.
J Street, it would not be in its current configuration when it was permitted at the time in the early 2000s. I think it was that configuration with that level of parking would not be permitted.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get across on this, on a situation like that, is if we have a problem in an area, let's just say J Street, okay, somebody has a lot across the street, it's 25 foot, is vacant, and they want to build on it. This is where it should come in front of a board somewhere. They say, look, in that particular area, you really need 2 spots on the, all street parking.
Unfortunately, that's illegal because you can't make somebody on their property remedy a parking situation. So what you're talking about is you're talking about denying somebody their property right in order to mitigate a situation on somebody else's property. And that could be litigation, which we will not win.
So how do cities resolve?
It's an issue in Delaware. I mean, I was up in Maine, population.
Because somebody has to.
Sometimes it's not
12,000,
solved.
same
Sometimes
issues.
it's solved by more people go and they make choices to walk or they use alternate transportation. Honestly, like we had staff, at the county that worked in suburban county that didn't own a car anymore.
Yeah.
There are people in their 20s who are living in environments like Lakeworth who choose not to own an automobile at all because of the expense. And they Uber they ride share, they bike, they do all kinds of things. I mean, that is a trend among
That is the future.
Is that for everybody? No. Maybe in that situation, if you really like a lot of parking, that area isn't for you. That's not your jam,
One last thing, I would like to thank everybody for indulging me, even if my lost cause. I really do. Thank you very much for trying to explain it to me. Everything else, I don't still agree with it. I think something else needs to be done. I feel like I'm up here for the neighbors in the area. I'm representing the neighbors. And if this becomes a parking issue, or there's like, who approved this? And I was up there really saying, well, we could have improved on it. But so thank you very much for putting up with that.
All right.
You're welcome.
All right.
Other board comments?
I would just add that the more, in my view anyway, the more exclusionary kind of zoning and regulation and limitation on housing that we have, the more our prices are going to go up. And so people might want to have higher property values, but it has an ugly side to it too, where it's going to limit how many people can afford to live here. So we have to look at ways where we can provide a diversity of housing so people can live here.
Eventually ADUs. On a minor issue, I'd like to talk to you folks about changing that one condition on window.
Tell us what you want to do.
Okay, I'll write it down for you.
Okay, write it.
Well, it really comes down to the window type, what that reveal probably should be. And so if we have to do those 3 or window addendum that's cursory to our approval matrix, that would be great because it is a little bit.
The concept is we want to get some shadow lines. So,
That's all.
And To all of you, thank you for your service this year, and I hope you all have a lovely holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Days off, so it's.
Good for you as well.
All right, are we,
I didn't approve it, I'm just saying.
are we finished? We are adjourned.